Monday, folks. You're back in the office, back on the grind. Another new week has started, but that means another new episode of Hornets Daily as well. Welcome into your one stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you know by now you can call me VB. I want to thank everybody for watching with us today, joining along out there. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comments section. Always fun watching you guys interact, getting to interact with you a little bit. Share some thoughts down in the chat as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It stayed safe out there, enjoying one of these last couple weekends before summertime fully winds down. School will be back in session soon, and the regular season here in the NBA is creeping ever so close. We've got a good bit on the docket today, some things buzzing around in the Queen City over the weekend. We'll jump right into that there. Chris Gent is out as the Hornets assistant coach. He's accepted a new position in the NBA. I'll tell you about that today. Moussa Diabate has been cut from Team France. We won't be seeing him in Eurobasket 25. We'll talk about that on the show as well. This regular season, the 25-26 season, we've discussed a lot. There's a lot of optimism, a lot of hope coming into this season. But how important for the future of the stars on this team, for the future of the franchise as a whole, how important are wins and losses right now going to be for this season? I know that's a confusing question because obviously winning is what this game is all about. But I'll flesh it out a little bit and we'll talk about that on the program today as well. And should the Hornets consider moving on from one of their stars? Not the one you think, as we've talked about the future of LaMelo several times here on the program. Today we're going to discuss if whether or not the Hornets should move on from Miles Bridges. We'll get into that towards the end of the day's show as well. Now, you know I don't beat around the bush very often here on Hornets Daily. Not something I'm fond of. We like to jump right into it, dive headfirst into the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now, I mentioned Chris Gent is no longer a part of the Hornets staff. A big blow dealt to the coaching staff over the weekend as Gent has agreed to become a member of Mike Brown's coaching staff on the New York Knicks. Gent will become the associate head coach and take over as the offensive coordinator under Mike Brown. Again, it's going to be a big loss for the Hornets, a big blow, as Gent was, we know, the head coach for the Summer League team that just went 6-0 and won a championship out in Vegas. But more importantly, because of the player development ability that Chris Gent has. Now, that's why he was hired. He's been known for a long time. He's 17 years in the NBA as a coach at some level. And throughout that time, he's gained traction and experience, knowledge of player development abilities. That's what he is good at. That's what he was brought in for and was hoping. And Charlotte was hoping he would stick around to do, considering that development is a massive part of this team's future, a massive part of the plan going forward. A very young team that has only gotten younger this summer in the draft. Obviously, not necessarily with the additions, considering Dinwiddie, Plumlee are both over 30. Pat Connaughton as well. So some of the older guys have been added this summer, but the main core, the guys that we know that the Hornets are going to build around and hope to go forwards with, those are very young guys who development is still crucial for, and losing a guy like Chris Gent is going to be a big blow. Sports Illustrated took it upon themselves to say that it was going to be a large loss for the Hornets because, quote, they have lost one of their architects of their progress. That just goes to show you about the kind of mindset and the importance that Chris Gent had to Charles Lee and the rest of his staff. He was leaned on heavily. Charles Lee would take a lot of advice from him, and he trusted Chris Gent again to develop these young guys, get close with them, and move them forwards in their NBA career. It's going to be interesting to see how the rookies deal with this as well. Now, I know they didn't have a lot of time with them, but Chris Gent is the one obviously most familiar with their game as he coached them and plug and played them into different rotation spots out in Las Vegas and got a little more familiar with their game. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to that loss as they come back into the gym, into the locker room with one less familiar face. Again, they're already all getting comfortable with the rest of the coaching staff, with Charles Lee as well. So that's not going to be a huge blow, but it is just a sense of familiarity that the guys got with Chris Gent that has now gone out the window. Replacing Chris Gent is going to be a move that needs to be made quickly, and in my opinion, is a decision that is going to have to be gotten right by Jeff Peterson and the rest of the front office who are in charge of making this decision. If they can bring in another guy who is good at developing, who focuses on that, who's known for that, just like Chris Gent, then the Hornets shouldn't really miss a beat. Again, it's not like he was extremely longly had been tenured an extremely long time here in Charlotte. He did come in with Charles Lee and only spent the 1 year here. So it's not a huge blow in that regard, but he is highly experienced, has a lot of time coaching in the league, and it is going to hurt a little bit to lose a guy who is as good at developing young talent as Chris Gent is. But if the Hornets can replace him and get that decision right, they shouldn't miss a beat and should be able to continue to keep moving forward with their future plan, developing their young stars and moving forward into the future. One of those young stars who's going to continue to develop, going to need to continue to do that, is Moussa Diabate. We thought we might get a chance to see him continue his development, take that next step forward in his game this summer in the tournament, in the Eurobasket 25 tournament. However, Team France has other plans for us. Moose did not make the roster when it was cut down to 14. Him, and two others were the final cut for Team France. Unfortunately, the big man did not make it. Now, the few clips that came out from from the workouts, from the tryouts, the few clips we did see showed Musa looking very good. He looked fast. His rebounding instinct seems to continue to get better. Not sure if we thought that was even possible. He's headed towards being one of the better rebounders in the NBA if he continues on this pace at this rate. Those clips looked good. He was making some jump shots. He, like I say, looked athletic. He was moving well. So that is all positive from a Hornets fan's perspective. There is also some good and some bad that could be taken from Musa being cut from Team France. I don't want to say good because I'm obviously not pulling for him not to make the team, but there are still some good things that can be taken away from it. One of which is we don't have to sit there biting our nails with our hands under our butts on edge, trying to pray and hope that Musa doesn't get hurt in an exhibition tournament. While he would be playing for his country, can't knock him for wanting to go out and represent that way, but it would still be scary and nerve-wracking watching him play in extra basketball games this summer, risking injury, knowing how thin the Hornets are at the big man position and that they cannot afford an injury at all right now in that spot. Musa gets a chance now to get back to Charlotte and get a little more familiar with all the new guys on the roster, not just the rookies, but the new additions as well. Moose has to ingrain himself with this new team, has to build a relationship with these guys, and a less time out in France gives him the opportunity to get a jump on that a little earlier than originally planned. Now, I know it's not the way he wanted to, but it is a good opportunity for him to get back and focus on his NBA season, especially focus on becoming a starter in the NBA, doing what it takes, showing this organization, showing the fan base through practice, through clips that are going to come out of Charlotte now, that he has taken that next step and moved himself into a ready position to start in the NBA, which we've talked about. He's probably going to be the starting five on opening night. And now this will give him the opportunity to get back in-house, back in Charlotte, build a relationship with his guys, show them that he's ready to be a starter in the NBA, and just continue to build, or just begin and continue to build that trust and that relationship with the guys he's going to be on the floor with. Now, some bad coming out of this. Obviously, he wasn't able to make the team. Nobody ever likes to be cut. That's not a good feeling. Another layer to that, it also is not the greatest sign that he wasn't able to make the team, despite the country's two best big men not playing, as Rudy Gobert and Wemby did not go out for Team France. We would have thought we were a little more optimistic that would give Moose a chance to make this roster. Unfortunately, he was not able to do so. And with him not playing, we don't get the chance to see him get those live minutes in a game against high-level competition. We don't get the chance to see if he has taken that next step over the summer in his workouts and in his development earlier than planned. Obviously, we still have the preseason and the regular season now to come, but there was a thought we'd get to see Moose in his game and his development a little bit early, get to see him get his legs stretched and get some high level competition under his belt before moving in to his second year with the Hornets, first what is going to probably be his first year as a starter on this Hornets team. We don't get to see that. We miss out on that. That part not as exciting. Some bad news there. Was really hoping to get to watch him play and see how he's developed, but now we have to wait until the preseason and the regular season. We'll find out with the rest of the team. Now, this again should be used if Moose is the type of guy that I think he is, that we've heard about, the competitive nature, the drive, the work ethic. If he's got any of those things like people have said he has, which I believe fully that he does, this is something that Moose should be able to use as fuel going forward, going into the season. He's now got something to prove to his entire home country that they made a mistake, that he is good enough to be on that team, and the next time he goes out for it, he can't be one of the guys that they cut. That's going to be good for Musa to have that kind of chip on his shoulder in that regard coming into the NBA season. Obviously, he's got plenty of bulletin board material with everybody talking about him not being good enough, him not being big enough, him not being built the right way to be a starter in the NBA. He doesn't need too much more bulletin board material, and this doesn't necessarily qualify as that, but it is an extra level of motivation, an extra reason to go out and get better and show the people back home that you have taken that extra step, so the next time they're not able to cut you from the national team. Looking forward to watching Musa develop and play with that chip on his shoulder this season as the Hornets go forward and continue to progress. Speaking of this season, I mentioned a little bit about the 25-26 season, a little bit confusing in the opening of the show, but what we're going to talk about today is this is the most optimism and excitement that this team has had coming into a regular season in a very long time, in recent memory, as a matter of a fact. Things are definitely trending in the right direction. The additions of the four rookies, Con Knipple, Liam McNeely, Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, the draft picks seem to be hits, and everybody seems to be high on them. There's a couple questions with Kalkbrenner and his ability, but he's going to be kind of thrown to the wolves, so we'll see him early and often this season. So things are trending in the right direction, but the question, what we're going to talk about, is how much does success in the wins and loss column actually matter this season? Specifically, how much does it matter for the future of LaMelo Ball here in Charlotte? This point continues to get hammered home that this is a long game. We saw it in the Laying the Foundation documentary. Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson both mentioned this is a long game. It's a future goal. It's not about right now being a flash in the pan. The success here in Charlotte is going to be long term if Peterson and Lee have anything to do with it. That's the culture change this new regime is trying to make, and that was reiterated even further in the documentary that came out on last Thursday. Now, we've talked all summer, of course, you've heard, if you've watched along, and I've said it already today, we've talked a bunch of times about what the future of LaMelo looks like. Are the Hornets going to trade him? Do they trade him now? Do they trade him at the deadline? Do they let him see if he can stay healthy this year and increase his trade value? All of those are possible options. But I think if we take a step back and look at this season and this organization, this franchise from a big picture, from a future standpoint, I'm not sure that's the best move, and I'm not sure this season is even the most important for LaMelo's future here in Charlotte. Now, take into consideration, LaMelo is 23 years old, uh, as are most of the young stars on this Hornets team. Brandon Miller, 22, Con just turning 20. Tajon Salon just turned 20. KJ Simpson, very young as well. So this team, this core, is very young, not just LaMelo. Ball is under contract in Charlotte until the 28-29 season. So it's not pressing to try and find something to do with him right now as well. He's got some time. He's under contract. The Hornets know where he's going to be. And he seems to be quite happy here in Charlotte. He's in all of the workouts already this summer. He's doing all of the right things. Guys like Grant Williams and Brandon Miller are raving about the leadership abilities, the step forward he's taken in that regard, and that category of his game as well. So it's not pressing right now that something be done with LaMelo. He's not on the way out the door. If we don't trade him, we won't get anything for him. He's not disgruntled. He's not demanding trades or anything like that. He seems to be in a pretty good spot. He's getting better and continuing to work and build a relationship with his new teammates. I think that is something we have to take into account when talking about LaMelo and the future here as well. Now, he's also much more appreciated by the Charlotte front office and fan base than I think he would be other places in the NBA as well. That comes due to a lot of his injury history. We know about all of that. No need to list it. We know that he does have an issue staying on the court. Unfortunately, hopefully that can turn around this season. But injuries have dropped his trade value over the years, and if he sustains another one this year, it tanks that value even farther, and it means that the Hornets won't get back on the other end what they feel they deserve for a talent like LaMelo. That's what I mean when I say he's appreciated here in Charlotte a little more than he would be throughout the rest of the NBA. Now, even if LaMelo does go out and stay healthy this season and play out of his mind, his $40 million cap hit next year could also be quite the turnoff for GMs trying to send some pieces or some assets, even some players back in return for that. Taking on that $40 million salary would be a big hit that's likely to turn some GMs away. As I've mentioned, LaMelo seems happy here, and if he stays on the court a full season, what that means for the Hornets, yes, people could see, and he maybe could play better and increase some trade value potentially. But what that means for the Hornets, if LaMelo's on the court all season, you've got to think this team took another step, got better, and progressed going forwards. Which, if LaMelo can see that, and he too can buy into the development of this future of this team in the future, then he's not really going to be disgruntled. He's not going to be really concerned with going here, going there, trying to get to a quote unquote winner or a playoff team. Charlotte has potential one to be that this season. They could make the play in, I think, quite easily with the way the Eastern Conference is set up. But it's not about that. If LaMelo can see the development, can see that there is something building and there is something trending in the right direction here with this young group in Charlotte, then that could keep him happy. That could keep him around as well. As we know, he's already under contract. It's just going to be about keeping him from becoming the disgruntled star trying to move and become a distraction on this Hornets team. Again, that brings us kind of back to the wins and losses that I was talking about. Winning is great, and no one obviously wants to go out and lose. You say, Vance, that's not the point. I know it. Winning is what you're supposed to do in the NBA. That's what you step on the court for every night. But I think we all know that Charlotte is not really in a place to make the Eastern Conference Finals, to go on a freak run to the NBA Finals and win a championship. That's just not where this team is at right now. They're heading in that direction, don't get me wrong, and I'm fully bought in to what Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee are selling. I think this team is moving in the right direction, but I don't. Again, this year that's just not where they are. So to me, this season it's not about wins and losses as much as it is about seeing the development and seeing the progress on the court. Can this team just improve in terms of shooting percentage, holding on to the basketball, not committing ridiculous turnovers? Can they get better and take that next step on the defensive end? Can the guys as individuals take a step defensively and get a little bit better, therefore making the whole team better on defense? How are the new guys going to mesh, both the rookies and the new additions of Spencer Dinwiddie, of Pat Connaughton, of Colin Sexton? How is the core going to mesh with those guys? Can they do that? Can they take a step and look like a team that's been playing together for a long time sooner than we think? If all of these things can fall into place, then I think that is what's going to be the most important for the future here in Charlotte, especially for keeping LaMelo happy, keeping him around, and continuing to be able to build this team around him and Brandon Miller as well. But we know Miller is a different type of guy than LaMelo Ball. So some of these questions don't necessarily impact Brandon Miller and his attitude towards the game as much as they do LaMelo's. It could, again, can LaMelo take that next step leadership wise? Can this core inspire him to take that step as an older player in the league now, as a veteran, if you want to say that? Can he take that next step and become the leader that these young guys need to see as they develop in their careers as the NBA as well? Again, it's not the time just yet to call it championship or bust, to call it playoffs or bust, to call it this, that, and the third with the Hornets here. It is time to sit back, look at the big picture, and just focus on development this season. Can the Hornets take a next step, maybe win 5 or 6 more games? Again, we've talked about their over-under being 24.5. I think they'll fly past that. But it's more, again, about development as a whole and watching and making sure that this team is doing the right things for the future and not just to try and be one flash in the pan going forward next year. It's going to be about development, 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 a word you've heard me say a lot here on the program and will continue to say as we move closer to and into the regular season. Someone who's not necessarily as focused on his development, and because we know what his NBA game looks like, he is still trying to get better and improve, but it's not necessarily development now. It's just some tweaks and changes to his already established NBA game. That is Miles Bridges, one of the big three here in Charlotte. We know he's one of the important core members along with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. But should the Hornets consider trading a guy like Miles Bridges? Should they consider moving on from him and adding future assets to continue along with the plan to build the future here in Charlotte? Colin Keene over at Sports Illustrated floated this out. He thinks the Hornets should at least consider moving on from Miles Bridges. He wrote about that over the weekend. As I've said, he is one of the core members of this Hornets team, but he doesn't exactly fit the plan for the future that the Hornets have presented and seem to be going towards either. Now, what I mean by that, yes, he's only 27 years old. I know that sounds ancient compared to some of the guys in the locker room in Charlotte, but it puts Miles Bridges right smack in the middle of the prime of his career. And this is the part that he may not fit the mold, fit the plan for in Charlotte. We know that there's not a lot of guys who you would describe as, quote, in their prime on this Hornets roster. There's 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 20-year-olds. You've got guys like Sion James and Kalkbrenner who were drafted old, but they're only 24. So it's not about having, right now, this team is not set up with a lot of guys that are, quote, in their prime. And moving on from a guy like Miles Bridges, who is in the prime of his career, who you could call a team who is missing that one piece, who is a contender but just needs that one extra guy to get over the top. Miles Bridges is a perfect player like that, perfect for a team that could be out there searching for a need at that position, at that can do the things Miles Bridges can do. Now we know the Hornets are getting a lot younger and they're looking towards the future, which could impact the 27-year-old Bridges' future here in Charlotte as well. A future that could be greatly impacted by the return that you could get from Miles Bridges. As I mentioned, he is a prime. He is in his prime. He's a 20-point per game scorer. He's a star, no question about that. He's very, very good at his job of scoring the basketball and playing in the NBA. He's also got the ability to play up and down position-wise, so he can move in and play the small forward or the three if you need him to. And if the other team has a bit of a smaller lineup on the floor, he can hop up and play the five if he's got to. On the defensive end of the floor, he can guard all of those positions as well. He doesn't handicap your team. He's not a crutch. No, he's not going to come in and make the first team all defense or anything like that by any means, but he is not going to hurt your team on the floor defensively as well. So what the Hornets could get back in return for Miles Bridges may make it worth considering picking up the phone, answering the phone if someone calls to inquire about Bridges. It's definitely worth listening to that conversation and having that conversation. We do know, however, I've got to touch about it, we know Miles Bridges' history and his past and the tumultuous stuff going on there, but it seems in the last couple years that the league doesn't really take issue with that. No one, so I don't think that would impact his trade value too much. The skeletons are out of the closet, and I don't think that is going to be too much of a concern if the Hornets do try to move Miles Bridges. I'm not sure his past is going to creep up on him too much more than it already has. Also, Bridges' contract makes him a lot more movable, a lot more desirable from another GM's perspective than a guy like LaMelo Ball, who I mentioned is going to take a $40 million cap hit after this next season. Miles Bridges is due to make $25 million this year, and then that drops down to $22.6 million going forwards. So he's a little more affordable. The contract is a little easier to digest than something like LaMelo has or one of the other big contracts. So that too could help increase his trade value, could help get Miles Bridges moved if that's the direction that the Hornets want to go in. This move, very importantly, would also create more minutes for Tajon Salon, a guy we have talked about several times here on the program. Moving away from Miles Bridges would bump him into the starting lineup and create real in-game NBA minutes, 30 minutes a game probably more than likely for Salon in that regard, which would allow for the Hornets to get him thrown into the fire, see if he is going to be the guy for the future, if he's taken that next step in his first year coming off the bench and getting able to develop, moving him into the starting lineup and being able to judge and see if he is going to be the guy going forward would also help answer a lot of questions for Charlotte as well. Now, if the Hornets are truly committed, which I have no doubt, I don't think any of you do either, we've been given no reason to doubt that they are committed to the future the way that they say they are, playing the long game, laying the foundation, if you will, as we have heard them say over and over again, then it's going to be moves like this. It's going to take things like trading one of your stars as he gets up into his prime. I don't want to say older because he's 20. I just refuse to say 27 is older. But as he gets into his prime, as he gets into his veteran years in the NBA, it's going to take moves like moving on from a guy like that to show you are serious, to show you really mean that you're going to play this for the future and try to build going forwards in the long game, changing the culture here in Charlotte, creating a winning culture. And it's going to take something like moving on from a star player like Miles Bridges and getting that return, getting those assets, that draft capital, that big player, big name, whatever it may be, whatever may be available for Miles Bridges. It's certainly worth looking at and considering going forwards, trying to build this team out in the future and change that culture the way, again, we've heard the front office of Jeff Peterson and company, Charles Lee, and even the rookies and the guys who have been here before, the Brandon Millers, the Grant Williams, the LaMelo Balls, they too are talking about a culture change and a future that includes winning here in Charlotte. It's going to take these kind of moves. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see going forwards into the regular season. Obviously, we know there are still some roster moves that have to be made. The Hornets still have too many guys. They're going to have to cut that down to 15 at some point. We'll keep an eye on that. But is trading Miles Bridges part of the way they try to do that? Who knows? Feel free to leave your thoughts on all that down in the comments section in the chat. We'll see what you guys think. That's going to do it for today's show, folks. As always, thanks so much for watching along with us. Be sure to smash that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comments section, and make sure you join us right back here tomorrow for a brand new episode of Hornets Daily.